needed that time off, not only to build a network, but also to be a little bit more self-analyzing. You're gonna find a way. Like if you really want to change something, find a way. Stop moaning. And I said, like, you know what? You're right. That change. I wouldn't say the perspective in life. It's not an indie band changed my life, but he gave me that excitement about a certain type of culture that in those early 2000 was quite popular and quite cool. How do you draft a story that tackles as many angles as possible without losing your identity? But there needs to be a consistency, and the way you implement that is where I think great company are very good at, and not as great companies are they have a little bit more of a learning curve to climb. But I'm genuinely excited normally about the future. Like the most exciting chapter is the one that is yet to be written.
So, Claudio,
Danny,
thank you for your time.
Thank you very much indeed for inviting me.
Pleasure. We spoke last week. We have a mutual friend. I had put out a request for volunteers for some research I'm doing, and you kindly stepped up. The research is, I've been working on a project for a long time now on broadly on productivity as it relates to individuals, to companies and to the economy in general. And I've looked at various angles. And the one I'm looking at currently is around talent, and specifically talent that's missing from the workplace. People have been out of work between roles for a period of time, and that was the request, to speak to people in that position, which you are. And what struck me is I'm really interested in a number of things, including whether it's affecting particular groups of people, whether particular skill sets are missing, the impact of technology, other macroeconomic factors, whether particular industries are affected, and these sorts of things. But what I found really interesting about our discussion was on a much more personal level. The fact that it's a difficult period of time being between roles, especially if it stretches over it begins to stretch over a longer period, and it's very easy to find yourself in a vacuum, to find yourself demoralized, to find yourself cut off from your network, these sorts of things. And what struck me from our conversation was just how positive your approach has been, because it can be a period of you can get lost, or you can treat it as a very positive opportunity to develop your ideas about your industry and your function, to get out there and network with the people you know and have worked with, and with new people as well. You can upskill, learn new skill sets, and you can more broadly look at the direction that your career and your life has taken, and re-establish or confirm or change your objectives in life, and then reorient towards that new direction. So it can be a really positive period of time, and a period of development or transformation. And I think that's what you've been doing. And it was really encouraging to talk to you, because, and what I want to cover today is I guess two things. Firstly, your actual ideas, what you've been thinking about in terms of what you can bring to a new role, but also just your approach. Because I think there's a lot, and I suspected before, and I found out there are a lot of people out there in similar positions who perhaps haven't been able to address it as optimally and productively as you have. So I think it's interesting on at least those two levels. So that's probably enough from me. A good place to start is for you to introduce yourself, personally, and just in terms of your career focus, not a CV run through, but a career focus, just to give us a flavor.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, like the positivity that you were talking about, it comes from a place where, and I did notice during this time where I was in between roles, that the reaction from a lot of people in my network and around myself, also as friends, they were not sorry for me, but they were actually envious of the time I had for myself. And also there is a perspective from my side that it's like taking time off is something that I wouldn't necessarily suggest lightly to everyone, because I do see that being a luxury, which is something that in my specific case, I tried to build over a year. So I wanted to be in a position where taking time off could be a choice, where I could re-explore myself and potentially fixing things and have the time to think about how to move forward in a career, but in life as well. But it's a position that somehow there is some sort of need to build towards that, and not every circumstance allow for it. So
Yep.
I've seen friends with family, for instance, that even if they wanted, they have different pressure compared to the ones that I choose not to have, for instance. So it's you're right, definitely a positive experience for me, but it's very circumstantial. So I had the right circumstances around me that I think made the path a little bit easier to walk through.
That makes perfect sense. So you're, if I've understood, you were from the beginning. It was a conscious choice and an understanding that this was a period of, could be a really productive period of time.
Yes,
and you were able to attack it from the beginning.
Yes, I had the philosophy, and it's been now for a couple of years that I never wanted to be in a job because I couldn't do otherwise. I was very lucky for many years to never had a long time off anyway. But if I think about my previous experiences, I never left a job. I think it happened only once where I left a job with something lined up. Now, in the past, my luck was that I was going for more junior roles, so it was much easier to market my skill set and get into the following one. And actually, the progression was I was able to get better seniority, better salaries every step along the way. This time around, because I wanted to go for a major step forward in terms of my seniority, which is somehow is a step back in a certain way for me as well. I knew that that would have taken a little bit longer, but I was happy to do that because I also felt that I needed that time off, not only to build a network, but also to be a little bit more self-analyzing about myself. And also there were a couple of other projects that I really wanted to finish. And even when I was in the job, I was like, actually, I wish I had a little bit more time for this. And then eventually, like, now I have plenty of time to do these extra things as well, which is, it's quite refreshing.
I want to talk about that. We'll come back to that because that I think is really interesting, and it's also key to find that thing I mentioned about, are you headed in the right direction? What do you want from life? You get an opportunity to align a lot of different things, like these different projects you wanted to do. But so we'll come back to that because I think that's fascinating. Just to rewind though, you talked about the always wanting to or being in a role that you wanted to be in, not that you had to be in, and sequencing your career, I guess, according to the steps that you wanted to take on your path. But there was a period of time, I think, when you moved to London. You moved to London without a role, which is a pretty courageous thing to do.
Yes.
Right? Tell us a bit about that, where you moved from, why you wanted to move to London, and how you approached, I guess, getting on the first rung of the ladder, at least in the UK?
Yeah, so I think like the love for London is something that I had since my teenage years. Or like the friends that maybe will see this show will know exactly where it started. And I think it was actually Oasis. Like when I was a teenager, like was the first band that I actually fell in love with. And then for a while I parked that, and I then fell in love with another band, which was the Strokes.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah, okay.
that change, I wouldn't say the perspective in life. It's not the like an indie band changed my life, but he gave me that excitement about a certain type of culture that in those early 2000
Yeah.
was quite popular and quite cool. But it was part there. I remember I was at university. A lot of my friends were studying abroad, and I didn't want to do that. I felt that as it was a little bit of a holiday, which is not. But my mindset back then was like, I want to go and work abroad, and I want to go and work in London. And then life happens, and for a while, I parked that idea, and I completely discarded the option of being in London until I was very unhappy with my job in Italy, my first role. And I remember I was moaning with my sister husband, and my sister husband told me something that like, well, like it's enough about moaning. You want to change something,
Yeah.
do something, and like think about what you can do. So you have no particular like boundaries or roots in the city. Like you don't have family or kids, so you always wanted to go to London. Like why don't you go to London? Like you are well educated, you have experience, like your character would fit there. And even if you don't have a job there, like you've been a waiter and a bartender before here in Italy, you're gonna find a way. Like if you really want to change something, find a way. Stop moaning. And I said, like, you know what? You're right. You're actually right. And that's what I did. I moved to London with a little bit of fear that it wasn't what I expected to be, with way less money than I should have had actually. But it was enough for me to have enough time to find the right experience to then stay here.
So interesting, because that is a point of transformation in a way, right? It's you're changing your path
Absolutely.
pretty drastically and take a risk. I mean, I guess you can always unmake that decision. But
Absolutely.
you're taking a risk, and it's a similar theme, right? You're going, okay, looking around you, saying, okay, this is kind of fine on balance, or there are bits I don't like, but what is the next step? And that's
Yeah.
a leap.
Yeah.
To into London.
And you know, for me, it was. I think it was very important because London can be a difficult city, especially compared to Italy. I think in Italy, we might get spoiled about the way we live, so we stay at home with our parents slightly longer than the rest of Europe or the rest of the world. So when you then are on your own in a new city, you need to compromise on certain things. But I had one thing, and friends visiting me noticed that like, I can't believe you're living here. Like you have like certain standards. Like why are you accepting this? And I was like, because I'm in an environment that is so exciting, and it brings so much into your life as a person. And I could see like in 3 months in London, the amount of people that I met, and the quality and how interesting those people were.
Yeah.
I could see that it was worth making a little bit of a sacrifice, because let's be honest, sharing a house, it's not that much of a sacrifice anyway. So it's just about context and comparison with what you had before, and you thought before it was the right lifestyle, which for me it wasn't. But I realized just over time when I moved to London, it was better than I expected, and I understood, ooh, that's what I didn't like, and that's what I was looking for, and London provided that.
That's so interesting. So you were inspired to move to the UK by Oasis.
Yes, yeah,
And then when you got here, you
Yeah.
found that the energy suited you, and despite challenge, there was more
100%.
stimulation and it moved you on.
100%, 100%,
I think
yes.
that's how it's. As an aside, when that first Oasis album came out, definitely maybe I moved to Manchester because obviously that's
Yeah,
where
yeah.
they're from, right?
Yeah, I can
had the
relate,
same
yeah.
had the same kind of weird, or weird inspiration. But a serious point is it's kind of interesting that focus galvanized you into the action and taking that big leap.
Yeah, everyone has their own storytelling.
Tell me about let's talk a bit about your career focus, and because that will set us up, we can talk in more detail about your ideas. What has been your career focus today? How would you summarize?
So when I look at my career, I split it into two main chapters. A little bit of a prologue, which is the experience in Italy. But the first chapter was the company that I was incredibly lucky to find when I moved to London. And it was this company was an e-commerce company. They were marketing different products in the healthcare space. And I was employed specifically to run an Italian website for an online pharmacy that was specializing in prescription medication. So we were selling medication from the UK to, of course, UK and Europe as well.
British company that had launched in Italy.
Yes, it was a British company that was delivering to Italy and to Europe. Regulation allowed that, because in the UK, different than many other countries in Europe, the online prescription is highly regulated. So we were dispatching to Italy, and we were targeting all the different countries in a very tailored way. So the company needed someone that understood not necessarily e-commerce and online marketing, because that was the skill set of the company itself, but they understood the customers, so the Italian customers that we were targeting. And the philosophy of the company was that before you could grow your team and grow your website as a little business by itself, you needed to understand the craft and the channel and the job well enough for you to be able to manage them. Therefore, you had to do a lot of hands-on stuff at the very beginning to be skilled enough to know the channel inside out. So I had to write content, and then I had the chance of hiring a content writer. I had to build the links myself. I had to ask myself the designers to for changes on the website, with the managers in the company supporting you in that in building that skill set that, of course, as a junior you don't have, but you build along the way. And when you know them, and the quicker you grasp those concepts, the quicker you grow. It was a great experience, because in 3 years the level of my skill set changed dramatically. And I remember I remember like this thing, like I wasn't taking holidays. I forgot to take holidays.
So interesting.
Because I was learning a lot, so I wasn't feeling tired. I was energized by this environment, which was both the skill set that were transferred to you, and at the same time the environment in the company, which was a great place where I met a lot of friends that are still my friends to these days. And it was this great place to be, where you don't sometimes even felt that you were at work, and that helped me progressing. Like after the results in that small website were like good enough for the owners to see some talent in me, to actually run the company on their behalf. So from an e-commerce manager, For 3 years, I built my own team, and I grew the turnover to a significant amount. And then they're like, "Look, do you want the the big role?" And I was like, "Well, yes, but are you sure I'm ready for it?" And then again, the extreme lack of being in the right environment was the fact that they were very comfortable in giving me the role and supporting me along the way. So, like, of course, at the very beginning, we would be behind you, and I knew that in the first years it was just executing their strategy, but it was not a blind execution. It was always a conversation, and it was a learning, and it was disagreeing in certain things, but it was a constant learning curve on very different things now. So it's not anymore about the hard skills of e-commerce, but it's more the soft skills of dealing with people,
Yeah.
of an international company. So you have many different cultures and many different languages, and also many different seniorities. So it's that sort of process that I was very, very lucky to have mentors that helped me along the way. So in the first chapter was in 7 years. I graduated from quite junior to an executive of a 20 million pounds company, which was quite unexpected, but very welcome nevertheless.
It's really interesting because that's a sort of sounds like a pretty rapid journey, right?
Yes.
And you're supported along the way. For if I've understood, you've got some natural talent, and all, we'll take that for granted. But you've also got, you talked about, which I love, that firstly just being energized by learning and progressing, and you talked about forgetting to take holidays and these sorts of things, which shows that you're super engaged with the subject matter. Let's say having colleagues who you're still friends with now, which is I think incredibly healthy sign of a culture, that you can bond with your colleagues to that degree, but also having the support of the management who said, if you were slightly nervous or questioning whether you were quite ready, you had that support. So you had those three things just accelerating you through from the beginnings of the kind of junior and learning the nuts and bolts to the broader role and the greater responsibility.
Absolutely, yeah. Which is something that I took for granted in the second chapter of my career, which was literally checking the world outside. So for me was I've only been in one company and one industry in the UK. I want to see what's out there. And if you look at my CV, the first 7 years, one company, two roles. If you look at the following 7 years, it's way more companies and many different roles. I even founded my own little company because I wanted to have that entrepreneurial experience as well. Very small, but of course I needed to face the challenge of playing with my own money, which was something that
becomes a bit more real then, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like when, I remember when one of my mentors, one of the owners of the company, told me I don't sleep at night. I was like, oh really? Like come on, like you're rich. Like how can you not sleep at night? And then when you start playing with your own money, even if it's not all your money, but it's just a small portion, there are a lot of forces that they come into place and that kind of underestimated when I was working for them.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, actually, now I can see a little bit of struggle to sleep at night. And you understand why. It's not just the money itself, but there is also a little bit of, I wouldn't say ego, but there is that sort of responsibility for something that you're building, and you want that to succeed.
You're fully invested in it, both in a literal sense, financially, but also emotionally, right?
Of course, yeah. And it's and I think it was important for me to have that experience because I then dealt with the founders and the owners of the companies that I joined afterwards in a very different way. So I would never say again, don't worry, trust me. Like I have experience. Like no. Like these people, they want to be reassured. So you need to give them a little bit more than that because you want them to sleep at night, and
Yeah.
it's on you to make sure that they understand why it's gonna be fine.
Yeah, I think also having. I mean, I've been a general manager, and and dealt with therefore diverse functions, and the whole piece. And it's really rare actually to find. There are a lot of people who have, which is a very healthy thing, positive ideas and suggestions and fight their corner and these sorts of things. You have these good, healthy internal debates around essentially where to invest. And it's very rare that relatively rare that people come having thought of the implications of what they're asking for, right? It's very easy to ask for stuff.
Yeah.
It's not very easy to think about what the consequences of that might be, and therefore where that investment should sit in the priorities. Now, I don't mind that, and it doesn't cause a problem, because the more senior you are, the more your role is about balancing those priorities. But you do occasionally get people who have obviously thought through the ramifications of what they're asking for and have an understanding of, okay, I think this is a great idea, and this is why I think is a better idea than something else we're doing right now, right?
Yeah.
And have that recognition of there's a bigger picture here.
Like, to me is and it's something that I think my mentors were great at, is sometimes you have people that if they didn't think about that consequence and that ramification, you as a leader, is very important that you ask the question for them to have then that knowledge,
Yeah,
but in a way that the idea and the ownership remains with them.
for sure.
So it's and that's it's a skill set as well, and sometimes you don't have the luxury of time to like, I know this idea. It can go sideways, but okay, you start asking the questions, and eventually it's a process that brings things back in line.
Yeah,
I understand that it's easier to say than implement, because sometimes first the leader doesn't have the confidence and the skill set to understand the ramification themselves, or they don't have the patience / the time to go through that process of bringing the question and I wouldn't say changing their mind, but refining the
refining is
idea.
a good word. Yeah, for sure. So you then went, after this long period of time, 7 years in the original company, you then moved more quickly through roles.
Yes.
In different. Is there a reason for that? Because what you've talked about so far strikes me, and if I'm getting this wrong, tell me, but it strikes me that you're treading a line between being, what is a good way of putting this, being capable of what you're doing, and then just pushing yourself where you're a bit less, where you're taking a risk. So you're going, okay, I look around me, I've reached this level, I just need to put my life into a bit of chaos, test myself, take a bit more risk. The move from Turin to London, various other, the move to the senior role in the original company. Is this, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is this an exercise in similar things? Like, just at the moment you begin to feel comfortable, you go, right, I need just to feel a bit uncomfortable now and just push a bit harder.
Yes, although, like, to me, being too comfortable is a sign of discomfort as well, in the sense that I get energized by challenges, and it's not that I get bored very, very easily, but I need to be challenged in a way that what I'm doing is going somewhere.
Yep.
And for 7 years in my previous company, I had a challenge. And the moment I started feeling comfortable and I wouldn't say bored, but the moment I've seen that learning curve flattening, it was time to move on. But it was an extremely competent company, they were able to engage me at a very high level for 7 years constantly.
Okay.
And it's like the forgetting the holidays and stuff. In the following 7 years, the learning curve in each role shortened dramatically for different reasons. First of all, because I was looking to get knowledge about different industries, but I also believe that the knowledge about an industry is something that if you work in a certain company, you get the knowledge relatively quickly. So in a couple of months, you get that one. Then you need a different challenge, which is I think I needed a company that was giving me enough room, like to go somewhere. And it's not about the size of the company, but it's also how are we going in that direction. And that is down to the business philosophy, which is something that I realize and I couldn't understand if I didn't see these many companies, which is you can reach, just as an example, you can reach 15-20% net profit in your P&L in many different ways. The fact that two companies reach the same, it doesn't mean they run in the same way. It doesn't mean they have the same best practices. It doesn't mean they treat people in the same way, and it doesn't mean they believe the same things are right. And in these 7 years, in the second chapter, I think I kind of understood much better what are those values for me. And I'm not saying they are the right ones, but there are certain things that I realized that they are extremely important for me that I didn't realize before. And many companies operate in many different ways. And if I notice that an organization doesn't align with my beliefs, then it becomes uncomfortable and frustrating and unhealthy for both sides. So it's not about who's right. It's just about having a pleasant journey together. If we cannot have it, then life is too short to waste both our times. And of course, like building that confidence financially, but also in terms of skill set. So when I moved to London, I didn't have many skills, but after those 7 years in the company, I knew that I know what I was doing. So it gives you confidence that you're gonna find someone else that needs your skills and, to be honest, likes the way you want to go about things.
Interesting. So if would you say it seems to me that it's an order and chaos thing, right? You're put into situations that are, let's call them chaos, moving to London, being given a role that you don't have the experience in, and you are addressing those challenges so that you're increasing the level of order, your capability, your confidence in what you're doing. And when you get to a certain level of, you talked about flattening, learning, flattening out. But once you feel that happening, you immediately then look for, okay, how can I introduce a bit more chaos so I can get some learning? And at the beginning, you're doing that in more junior roles, and this is the same for all of us. You are kind of aware of that balance and you're trying to manage it and just keep tipping yourself forward. As you get more senior, you understand the environment you're in and the sort of organization and culture that you need to be in order for that opportunity to keep coming up. So you can just keep leaning into it and just keep developing. Is that fair?
Absolutely. And to be honest, like you hit the exact spot. Especially from a professional perspective, my skill set is to make imperfect things. I wouldn't say perfect because perfection never exists and it never gets achieved. But imperfect things very nice and operating smoothness. that is my skill set. So I always end up in situations that are imperfect, and that is something that I know that I will always be in those situations, and I thrive in that, and I enjoy those situations. It's more like how you fix them and the reason why they are imperfect in the first place. So if it's not a structural or endemic disalignment with me, then it's gonna be great. And it's what happened in the first company. I did realize that where I ended up, for whatever the reason, and it were many different ones, eventually it couldn't be fixed in my way or with my principles. And
Let's come back to that because I think that's an important point, and I want to talk about that. I think it might be useful just to talk more specifically about your approach to your work. You know, you talk about we talked when we spoke last week about storytelling, and just tell me exactly what that entails as far as what your definition is.
so for me, when you are buying a product, like you're buying a story. And for me, storytelling in my context is making the circumstances right, for in a way that people, they don't buy things, but they buy into things.
Yeah.
And that applies not only in terms of what you're selling. It doesn't apply only in terms of your marketing, but it applies also in terms of the organization that you work with. Because I always see the employees of an organization as customers, and as much as you need to serve your customers, you have a duty on as a leader. You have a duty with the people that work around you, and you need to provide. And I might be a romantic in that sense, but I still believe is something that can be done and needs to be done. You need to provide an environment where people, they enjoy and they thrive. It's like ultimately something that good leaders should provide. And the only way to provide that is basically understanding what people want. So what customer wants, what resonates with them, what your employees want, what resonates with them, and then align your proposition to that as much as possible. Also considering the diversity of, like, every customer is different, so they might buy into stories for different angles. And employees, they can be the same. Like, they might enjoy a company because I have great colleagues, or they might enjoy the company because they're learning a lot. So how do you draft a story that tackles as many angles as possible without losing your identity?
Well, that was the question I was going to ask you, because you have to start with a story, and then you have to identify people who might be receptive to that story to buy into. And I love your distinction between that idea of buying into. So I guess you tell me, you start with a story, and then you identify the customers who are going to be receptive, and then you test it with those customers, and you're almost developing the story as between the core company, the customer, and the employees to align the whole thing.
I was smiling because it's very difficult to identify if you come up with the story first, or you identify the customer first. I think subconsciously, when you think about a story, there is already a customer that you have in mind.
Yes.
I guess directors, like, they know already that there would be an audience for the story they want to tell. and then eventually, like, you get those readers, or those, like, that audience, um, towards the story itself. But whether you start with the idea, or you start with an audience in mind, is the chicken and egg question.
It's at least a two-way process.
Yes.
So it's a bit like, would a good analogy be, I don't know, a comedian who goes out testing material, and if certain material doesn't work, they've got a core idea of what their set is.
Absolutely.
They test certain material. If it doesn't work, they scrap that, and it's a sort of symbiotic process between customer, between audience and performer.
I love that you mentioned the comedian angle, because I was listening to a podcast, an Italian podcast, and there is one of the my favorite comedians in Italy, and he was saying that the reason why they were so successful and they were related to people, it was because at the beginning of their career, they couldn't afford taxis, and they were taking buses, and by taking buses, they were watching people.
Right.
And a lot of their gags were basically taken from what they were observing in society, and they were very relatable. And I think that can apply in, and it does apply in business as well. Like, when companies start, they normally answer a need. And so the need is there. So there is already an audience with a need, and that generates the what. The why, for me, though, is the most important thing. And the why is like, how do you want to communicate that what? And it's very subjective. So it depends on you. Which kind of audience you want to target, yes, and in which way. But it's fascinating to see that it's very fluid. I don't think is clear cut.
I agree, by the way. And it's an ongoing process.
It is,
well.
Absolutely.
In practical terms, then, you're establishing a story. You are iterating that story according to the customer feedback or interaction, and I guess events. Where are you? What is the scope of the deployment of that story? That story is like what through the funnel. It's in the marketing. It's on the site. Does it go through to customer service? Like, where does this? I guess everywhere, right?
Correct. Okay. That's the art. Is it should be everywhere. The
and
client,
consistent.
Yeah, and consistent. Consistency, like, to me, is the most significant word of the process, and it's and that's the art, because it's easy to say I want to be consistent, yes, but you talk on the website in a certain way, and then customer service representative. They need to talk exactly in, I wouldn't say in the same way, but there needs to be a consistency, and the way you implement that is where I think great company are very good at, and not as great companies are they have a little bit more of a learning curve to climb. Let's say that.
Yeah, and I think that's true. And I think we all experience that in our daily life.
On paper, everyone wants to do that.
Yes.
And but execution is also key. And like, the way you execute what you say you want to do on paper, there is a huge and wide spectrum.
Yeah, I think also there are a couple of challenges. Well, I'm sure there are more, but two that I'll suggest. One is the customer service piece, because it strikes me that your analogy of the comedian on the bus is the same as a company with customer service. It's the customer service people who are talking to customers who often aren't happy, right? Because you don't phone customer service for a pleasant chat,
correct,
necessarily. And a lot of companies miss that bit. Right? It's outsourced. It's not part of the culture. Or whatever it might be, and that's the very point where
absolutely
you really want to be reinforcing the story, because those are the people it's hard enough to acquire customers. Losing them because at that point, because they're unhappy for whatever, which, things happen, I think is pretty critical, and that gets overlooked.
So it's and I couldn't help smiling because it is quite literally from customer service. The first company which I always mention, and I guess there is also a reason why. Their philosophy was to hire those juniors that at the very beginning they had to do everything, including customer service.
Right.
When I joined the company was already at a good stage. So I had the luxury of having a customer service representative that was shared between different websites, like an Italian guy doing customer service. Because he was the only Italian guy in the company, in the premises, he couldn't go for holidays until I was hired.
Okay.
So the moment I was hired, I had to spend 2 weeks in customer service, and I was not happy to do it. But then I remember the exercise of listening to what were the customers asking, and all the questions they were asking, they were not about the medication, which was what we had in the product page. It was mainly about the service. And for 2 weeks, I could see like people that were very happy about the service as well. So it was literally just checking, and it was this reassurance. And when I went back to my desk, I changed the content of the website to respond to that specifically, because it made sense.
Yes.
And of course, conversion rate double up. But of course, it's a double-edged sword, because, as you were saying, people sometimes or many times they call customer service to complain. So you need to filter out that information. So is this information useful? So is it going to provide value in the long run, or I'm going to scare customers? So I'm going to put like information here that like, ooh, like, why are you mentioning this? Is it like, is
this a major problem? Yeah.
So it's that sort of balance. But I remember that when hiring website managers myself in the future, I put that mandatory 1 week when they started in the company.
I love this.
Not doing customer service, because I remember how nervous I was picking up the phone, but like just be there, shadow the customer service representative, just listen.
I love it. I love that as an idea. I've voluntarily done customer service in companies I've worked for, like done it, because I think it's, as you say, it's the only way really. There are two things, right? It's the way that you really understand what customer issues are, and you can apply some intelligence to it and say, well, that's not really a problem. That's you just being angry this morning, madam, or whatever it might be. But it's the only way, especially with an online business. You don't have the luxury, I'm doing air quotes.
Yeah.
You don't have the luxury of having customers come into your shop and complain. So you're disassociated from your customers. It's very easy to lose sight of not just what the day-to-day problems might be, but actually what your purpose is.
Absolutely.
Right? Because you have millions of people on your website every day. Sure, you're not interacting with them.
Absolutely.
So you're not getting that. I think that's a real risk with e-commerce businesses. Go on.
Sorry, but also like I think it was like something that that exercise suggests as well is the KPIs that you can implement from that, and I mentioned conversion rate, which is like straightforward KPI. One for me that it happened to be very random, and then after that, like no, I want to check this thing now, moving forward, was after implementing that content on the website. I remember the same customer service guy that came to me like, Claudio, is there a problem on the website? Like, why? Like the turnover that day was like booming. I'm like, why do you think there is a problem? I was like, because nobody's calling. And I was like, okay. And then it was like the incentive. How can you create content and a flow that is so good that you actually make the customer service life easier?
Yeah.
And they need to only deal with exceptional cases, because of course in business stuff happens, and it's normal. But you want that phone call to happen on 1% of your orders. If it happens for like 50% of the orders, there is a problem somewhere. Either is in the way you provide your service or you send your product, or the way you communicate, either of those, which is something that was, again, it was a random discovery. It's like someone that raises a question like nobody's calling. Like, is it a bad thing? Like, no, it's actually very good. And I didn't even think that could be a KPI.
But what's interesting, you mentioned KPIs, is I don't claim this idea. Do you know Rory Sutherland? I'll recommend his book. I read his book, and he makes a really interesting point around customer service. So, firstly, customer service is not. It's a fairly significant cost, and it's a bit of a headache because you got capacity management. You got to manage peaks and troughs. It's not a straightforward operation at all.
No.
But I want to say most customer service KPIs are duration of call, let's say, keeping calls short, this kind of stuff, which is the wrong metric. If you were to really redesign, again, not my idea, but if you were to redesign customer service, you might look at lifetime value. Like, how many of these customers ended up happy and came back and purchased over a period of time, right?
Absolutely.
And they're diametrically opposed as concepts. You're either trying to get through a number of calls per hour, which is a standard metric, or you're going, well, look, we're investing in the customer service team. They're telling our story live, not face-to-face exactly, but live with customers. We should harness that touch point in order to generate loyalty. And that should be the point of a customer service team.
Absolutely. And it definitely is, there is definitely a business advantage, like a business take from it. And equally, one major issue that I don't know how spoken it is about customer service is that if you have a customer service team that gets bombarded with issues all the time, the duration of the same person in the role shortens. You burn out the person very quickly. And so I think it's important that, first of all, like that time is, and again, it might sound super romantic, super optimistic, but if the customer service receives phone calls that are a little bit more appreciative, like if you offer like great service, and I remember like picking up the phone, and if someone tells us, look, you're always great, guys, only this time I have this little problem, can you help? Is a very different interaction to having like constant calls of people like destroying your business because you're doing something wrong. So it's important to look after like your team, not only providing them a pleasant journey when they are in the customer service role, but also, and it's again something that is a little bit more on the employee side, providing a pattern of development. So where is customer service developing? And you can develop into marketing, or you can develop into logistics,
really
operations, finance. It's and I think it's very important to offer that. It makes also the journey a little bit worthwhile.
Well, it's just, I mean, it's scaling up your idea of people starting on customer service, or at least shadowing customer service as a platform for the rest of their, if you just by extension, customer service in an ideal world, customer service staff, they start there, they'll get a thorough understanding of the customer and the business.
Of course.
If they're managed correctly and targeted on the right things.
And I did remember how difficult it was to find good customer service people. It was like it was the area where we had the highest turnover for many different reasons, including the fact that dealing with customers like require that like sensitivity
Mhm.
and again like kind of storytelling in that sense as well
Mhm.
to manage them. And it's a skill set, and it's a very very important skill set to have that not everyone has.
I love that. So we've redesigned the function of customer service.
Oh.
That's not a bad bit of work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hopefully, yeah. I'm sure. Like my mentors would be very happy to hear that.
What what's next? What are you hoping? You talked about the culture of the business and you know the purpose of the business, and I guess the sort of culture you want to operate in and operate best in, the sort of leaders you'd want to work with. What sort of give me a bit of detail on precisely your thoughts are around you personally. What would be an ideal scenario? What is the next challenge?
So the next chapter is yet to be written, which is very exciting in itself. So I don't necessarily know what is next in details. I know what the next chapter should be, or at least which are the few points that would provide a likely success story in the future. And of course, we touched upon that before. Like surely it needs to be an imperfect organization that needs Claudio. Otherwise, if there is nothing to fix, there is no point in bringing me on board. In terms of size, I really enjoy SMEs. So companies that have enough turnover to experiment things fairly quickly,
Yeah.
but not necessarily with the obsession of scaling massively and unhealthily. So it's I would say like the between 1 and 10 and looking to scale to 50. That is the sort of organization that I'm sure I would be valuable for. In terms of people, like normally the size of the turnover reflects to the size of the team. But the most important thing is what is the story that we are telling. So I need myself to buy into what we're doing as an organization, and that's very important because, of course, if you buy into what the company is doing, then of course you are much better in delivering that story, first of all, to the customers, but also get the people around the organization to buy into that as well.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
So it's, I guess, like the word that I'm looking for is alignment. That's
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, and as if you think about things as stories, that's precisely what you need, right? You need a coherent story, otherwise, well,
absolutely,
it's not a story.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's been great to talk to you. Really
My
fascinating conversation. Thank you. I think the fact that I just love the fact. I think it's really important in the when you are between roles. I mean, we talked about it at the beginning that you are clear, or if you're not, you become clear about precisely where you want to go, and you might change that. During that you can reflect. You establish where you want to go, and then you establish what the steps are to reach that, and then you manage this sort of forward momentum with capability. So you don't go so fast that you get things wrong and you're not sufficiently capable to do the job. But you move sufficiently fast that you're just a little bit outside your comfort zone, and you've got forward motion. And I think that is what I've got from this conversation. Like right from moving from Turin, arriving in London, it's been that just sort of forward progression. Very aware of where you're going, very aware of what the steps are, a bit outside the comfort zone, but not too much, and just that forward progression. And I think that that's if you adopt that approach, only good things can happen.
Oh yeah. I'm sure of that. But I'm a grounded optimist myself, so I'm sure it's gonna be all right if you put the right work behind. But that is in your control anyway. So it's
and what you're doing.
Yeah, and it's exciting, to be honest. it's I'm not saying like because it's this situation, but I'm genuinely excited normally about the future. Like the most exciting chapter is the one that is yet to be written.
Beautifully put. Listen, when that chapter starts, let me know.
I will indeed.
Claudio, thank you so much.
No, thank you very much indeed for having me today. It was a real pleasure.
Likewise.
Thank you.